Begin today the Gemara on the bottom of Daf Ayin Ches Amud Beis, 2 lines for the bottom of the Yomud. Masav Rav Chisda. So the Gemara brought before Amar Rab Chanina, or actually the Ran before has the Girsa that it was Rab Yechanan that said the halacha of a husband being quiet when his wife makes a neder. So that itself counts as a validation of the neder. If he's quiet the entire day that she made the neder. But Rab Chanina said that that's only if he's actually quiet and he has the intention to nullify the neder. What if he's quiet and he's thinking to himself, let me give my wife some time, let her think that I'm validating the neder, and he just wants to annoy her. He uses the lashon lameikat, but in other words, the point is he's planning on nullifying the neder. If that's his plan, being quiet with that intention in your heart to nullify the neder, that's not called quiet, and even 10 days later you could still nullify the neder. That's his chiddush. So the Gemara is going to continue. The Gemara asked a question before on this. The Gemara is going to continue asking from another Braisa now. Master Rav Chisda asked a question. The Braisa tells us, Chaymer behakem mi behafer. There's a certain stringency in the ability of validating the wife's neder, mi behafer, from the ability to nullify the neder. And the same in the reverse. Ubahafer mi bahakim. There's a stringency in the koyach the husband has to nullify the neder from the koyach he has to validate the neder. And the Braisa spells out what's the chayme bahakim. What's the stringency that there is when a person validates his wife's neder? Shashtike mekayemes. When it comes to validate, even just being quiet, that itself validates the neder. But ve'ein shtike mevateles. There's no way you could nullify a neder just by being quiet. Nullifying a neder, you have to express and say, mufalach. So that's, you see that the power to validate is stronger, even just by being quiet. Another thing the Braisa says, kayim beliboy kayim. If you validate the neder in your heart, then the neder is validated. Hafer beliboy ein mufar. But if you nullify the neder in your heart, it's not nullified. In other words, so the simple difference here between these 2 points that the Braisa is saying is, when it speaks about that hashtike mekayemes, that being quiet invalidates the neder, that means if you were quiet until the end of the day. So the b'yayim shama, you were quiet until the end of the day, it validates it. But then when it says kayim b'libay, means that even when you heard it, and right away in your heart, you thought to yourself, I want this neder to be validated, it's a neder I agree with, so then it gets validated right away, not by the end of the day. Okay, so that's what the Braisa says regarding the strength of validation that's more than nullifying the neder. Then the Braisa continues actually to say another point where we see that to be mekayim the neder, to validate the neder, and to nullify the neder have a certain similarity. Kayim, once you validated the neder, and yachal hafer, you can't reverse that. You can't decide, change my mind, I want to nullify the neder. Hafer, once you nullify the neder, and yachal kayim, you will not then be able to change your mind and to validate the neder. Okay, now the Braisa itself does not spell out what the stringency or what stronger koyach there is to the nullification of the neder, more than validating the neder, but the Gemara is soon going to spell it out. But the Gemara now asks a question on Rab Chanina based on what we just read here in the Braisa. Katani, the Braisa just said, Sha'ashtike mekayemes, that by you being quiet, that validates the neder. My love, don't you think, what does the Braisa mean to say? B'shaisik, that is, when a person is quiet, I'm manas lameikat, even if in his heart he's thinking that I'm planning on nullifying the neder. Even then, as we say that him being quiet for the whole day will validate the neder, and not like Rab Chanina said. So the Gemara says, no, who says not necessarily b'shaisik, I'm manas l'kayim. When the Braisa says that he was quiet, that it validates the neder, that's because he was quiet with the intention to validate the neder. In fact, the Gemara Barakadi say that. But Hainu Kiyim Belibay. That's exactly what the Braisa says afterwards. That if you validate the neder in your heart, in other words, you're quiet and you're thinking in your heart, I want this neder to be a neder, so then it's a validation immediately. Kiyim Belibay Kayim. So the Braisa says that already. So what does it mean when it says that if you're quiet, it'll be a validation by the end of the day? Doesn't that mean that even if you're quiet and in your heart you're thinking, one day I want to nullify this neder, it doesn't work? Not like Rab Chanina said. So the Gemara answers, no, still not necessarily does it mean that he's thinking that he will nullify the neder, elo b'shaisik stam. We can say, the Gemara gave this answer before already, that when it says shtike mekayemes, it means that he's quiet and he's not thinking anything. He's not thinking not to validate, not to nullify. He's just not paying attention. He just lets it go the whole day and he's quiet and he doesn't react. And then, even that, the Braisa says, it'll be a validation. That's what the pasuk says. If you're quiet the whole day, it becomes a validation. Okay, now the Gemara returns to sort of finish off the point of the Braisa, because the Braisa was saying that there's a stringency, there's more of a power to a validation more than nullification, and that the Braisa spelled out, but the opposite of how the Hofer, nullifying it, is stronger than validating it, than the Hakim, the Braisa didn't spell out. Says the Gemara, Ashkechan chayme b'Hakim b'Hofer. We explained the stronger power of validating more than nullifying the neder. But where do we see, what is it that nullifying a neder is stronger than validating a neder? So the Gemara answers, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, something we learned before already. Rabbi Yechanan said, Nish'alin ala hakim. When the husband validated the neder, he could request a heter for this validation. If he changes his mind, he can get a heter from this. Just like you can be matter on neder itself, you can be matter the validation of the neder. But once you nullify a neder, you can't request a heter for the nullification of the neder. As the Ran explains, the validation of the neder, that's like the neder itself. Just like you can get a heter for the neder, the validation of the neder is sort of an extension of the neder. So for that we find that you could get a heter for this. Nullifying a neder, that's it. The neder is gone. There's no such a concept of getting a heter for a nullification of a neder. That's the stringency or the stronger power that there is in the hofer, in nullifying a neder. Okay, the Gemara returns now again to the point of being quiet with the plan, thinking that you're going to nullify the neder. Does that work or not? So Rav Chanina said it doesn't work. So on this Gemara asks another question. Masar Rav Kahana asks, the Braisa here clearly says not like Rav Chanina. He brings the pasuk, if her husband is going to be quiet on the day that he heard the neder. So the Braisa says, what does this mean? It says a double lashon, hachrish yachrish. Why? The pasuk here is saying, even if he's quiet and he just wants to annoy her, he's planning on nullifying the neder, it'll still be a validation. The Braisa explains, you say that the pasuk is saying even if he was quiet and he was planning on nullifying it, even then it'll be validating the neder. Maybe this pasuk is only speaking about a person that's quiet and he's thinking in his heart that he wants to validate the neder, then the quiet, him being quiet validates it. Says the Gemara, in the end of that pasuk, it says yet again, ki hechrish la b'yom shamay, harei b'sheisik amanas l'kayim akasam medaber. That's the pasuk saying when a person is quiet with the intention to validate, that it will validate the neder. Hamani mekayim hachrish yachrish la isha. When it says in the beginning of the pasuk again, hachrish yachrish la, what is that coming to say? B'sheisik amanas l'meikad akasam medaber. Here the pasuk is saying if the husband's quiet the whole day, even if he's thinking that he's going to nullify it in the future, it doesn't help. He was quiet, the neder is going to be kayim. Says the Gemara, tiyufte. So this clearly refutes what Rab Chanina said, a clear braisa, not like Rab Chanina. So the Gemara asks on this, v'loikim. The Gemara asks on the braisa itself actually. V'loikim, similar to what we said before, there are actually three different types of being quiet. There's being quiet, thinking in your heart you want to validate. Then the other extreme is being quiet, thinking that soon, later, and one day I'm going to nullify. And then there's just being quiet, stop, not thinking anything. So the Gemara asks, how do we know in this Braisa from the extra pasuk to go to the extreme that he was quiet thinking that he wants to nullify? Maybe the extra pasuk of hachresh yachresh should come to teach me that one is telling me when he was quiet and he intended to validate. And and then the second time it says hachresh yachresh is coming to say that he was quiet and he wasn't thinking anything. How do you know that it's even if he's clearly thinking that I'm doing this just to annoy her and I want to nullify, still the shtike should validate the neder? Answers the Gemara, kroi yisei riksivi. There are extra psukim here. What the Gemara means to say is that really there are three expressions of charisha that the pasuk says, because it says hachreish yachrish, which is two lashonis, double lashon. Right there you have twice, and then the end of the pasuk v'im hachrish la. So it says three times. So if it says three times quiet, it includes all these three ways of being quiet. That it doesn't matter in all these ways, his being quiet will be mekayim the neder. The Gemara continues to ask. Yeah, so this refutes what Rav Chanina said. But even though the Gemara refuted what Rav Chanina said, the Gemara continues now and asks another two questions on Rav Chanina, another two places that this proves Rav Chanina's chiddush. Masav Rav asked, going back to a Mishnah we had before here in the Perek, Nedarim chashecha, she made a neder on Shabbos right before night. So so the husband has the ability to nullify her neder before it gets dark, before Shabbos ends. Shimlei hafala, because if he's not going to nullify the neder now, v'chashka, then it gets dark, so any yachal hafer, you won't have the ability to nullify the neder later. So like we learned before in the Gemara, this is actually the reason why you're allowed to nullify the neder on Shabbos, because if you're going to wait till after Shabbos, it'll be too late. But the question is, according to Rab Chanina, why will it be too late? Amai, just like he's saying, when a person is quiet and he's thinking that he wants to really nullify the neder, but he's just annoying his wife by waiting. So over here, let's say the same thing, that if it's Shabbos, and we're not going to allow him to nullify the neder on Shabbos, and he has to wait until after Shabbos, he's quiet with the intention to nullify it right after Shabbos. So he should be able to nullify it later as well. So the fact that the Mishnah says that you can't nullify later, even in this kind of being quiet, is not like Rab Chanina to Yufte, so this as well refutes what Rab Chanina said. The Gemara brings now a third place, another Mishnah that's going to be in the next Perek here, that refutes what Rab Chanina said. Most of Rav Ashi, so the halacha regarding nullifying a neder is on the day that he heard about this neder. So there's more details about this. So the Mishnah there says, what happens if he says, the husband says, Yedei anisha yesh nedarim, I know that my wife has nedarim, she made a neder, avol eini yedei sheyesh mefirin, but I'm not aware of the fact that it's in my hands to nullify her neder. So I heard about the neder. This is the day I actually heard, but give me a chance to be made for the neder until the day that I find out the fact that it's up to me. So the Mishnah says, Yafir. So then you're right. The day he finds out that he can be made for the neder, so he has that day to still be made for the neder, even though he knew about the neder before, but he didn't know it's in his hands. He didn't know he has the power to be made for the neder. He didn't know. He didn't know that it's up to him. What's if the husband says the opposite? Yideya anisha yesh mefirin. I did know that it's that there's this power that I have that to nullify the neder. Avol eni yideya shezen neder. But I didn't know I could nullify this neder that my wife made. As we'll see right soon in the next Mishnah here, the next Perek, not every single neder that a person's wife makes could the husband be made for. Certain nedarim yes, certain nedarim no. So he says, I didn't know I could be made for this neder. So he knows that his wife made a neder. He knows that he could be made for the nedarim, but he thought not this neder. So over here in this case, Rav Meir lo yafer. Rav Meir says, so now he can't be made for the neder. But Chachamim says, yafer, that he could be made for the neder. So Rav Meir says, because he knew about the neder and he knows that he could be made for the neder, the fact that he didn't know this detail, that this is the neder that I could be made for, that's not enough. He can't be made for the neder. Chachamim say that he could be made for the neder. Okay, but the question over here on Rab Meir is, why can't it be made for the neder? V'amai lehevik keshoisik al menas lameka. Just like Rab Chanina said, if he's quiet with the intention to nullify the neder, he just wants to annoy her, that's not called being quiet. Same thing over here, when he was quiet, when he heard his wife making the neder, he didn't realize, b'chlal, that he's not allowed to be made for this neder. That he has the power to be made for this neder. So, but really he wants to be made for this neder, he just didn't think he could. So he was quiet, hoping it. I mean, he would hope that he could be made for the neder. So this should be considered to be al manas lameka. And the Emma says even the Chachamim, you see, they would agree to this point. This is a question that is. This is a question even according to the Chachamim. I mean, the Chachamim say that this person already knows everything, and therefore it's considered to be b'yayim shamay. Right. So this is Chachamim say. Again, sorry, let me repeat that again. Chachamim say it's not considered to be b'yayim shamay. Chachamim say because he doesn't have the information that this is a neder that I could be made for, he thinks that it's a kind of neder that he can't be made for. So he thinks, okay, so he doesn't have enough information, so it's not even considered to be b'yayim shamay. That's the reason why Chachamim say that he could be made for the neder later. But if not for that, we see here, even according to the Chachamim, that when a person hears a neder and he's quiet with the intention that he would love to be made for it, it doesn't matter. He can't be made for once he was quiet. So again, to Yufte, this refutes what Rav Chanina said. Hadran Allah Naira Meirasa. This is the conclusion of the 10th Perek of Masechta Nedarim. Okay, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we begin the last Perek of the Masechta, which continues on these halachas of a husband nullifying the nedarim of his wife. And here this Mishnah will discuss this point that we just spoke about, that not every single neder a person's wife makes could the husband nullify. These are nedarim that a husband could be made for of his wife. Dvarim sheyesh b'hem inui nefesh. Only those nedarim that his wife gets affliction of her soul. She's suffering from these nedarim. Like the pasuk that says la'anis nefesh. Only that's the lashon of the pasuk. On that it says isha yikemenu v'isha yiferenu. And the Mishnah gives an example. What is defined as something where she's suffering from this neder, and therefore the husband could nullify this? She makes a neder im erchatz, a neder if I will bathe myself, or v'im loy erchatz. Another expression. She makes a neder if I will not bathe. Now the Gemara will explain the expressions of these nedarim. It's a little bit unusual. Im erchatz or im loy erchatz. So the exact wording of this neder will be discussed in the Gemara. But the point is that she made a neder not to bathe herself. Or im eskashit v'im loy eskashit. Her neder is if I will adore myself, if I will not adore myself. In other words, she's not going to put up any makeup on her face. That's what it's referring to. So those kinds of nedarim, the Tanakhama says, is considered to be inui nefesh. For a woman, this is something which is an affliction. This is something that's bothering her. Even though it's not mamish, something like she's saying, I'm not going to eat, or I'm not going to, that's not something that's mamish, a basic necessity, but nevertheless, Tanakhama says for a woman, this is called inui nefesh. Rabbi Yosi, so on this Rabbi Yosi says, ein elu nidrin inui nefesh. No, these kinds of things are not considered to be the affliction of the soul. The following are considered to be things that are the affliction of the soul. So he says, things that are much more basic. She says, all fruits of the world, I will not eat them. So then he could nullify this neder, that she's holding herself back of eating fruits. So that's really what's called the inui nefesh. If she says, Peiris medina zu alai, I will not eat the fruits of this country. So then, even that, Rabbi Yosi says, is also not called inui nefesh, because yavilam medina cheres. You could bring her fruits from another country. Peiris chenvini zu alai. If she says, I'm not going to eat fruits from this storekeeper, so then any yachal hafer, he can't nullify the nedarim, because she can go and get fruits from a different storekeeper. Vim loy haisar panesasai ela mimeno. If the husband always gets the fruits and the produce, whatever, from this store, because the dafka this store sells him, or maybe dafka this store he can take on credit, so he always buys dafka from here. So this is where his wife gets the fruits from this store. So then you could nullify this nedarim, because even though she could technically get from another place, but since the husband always gets from here, that's called inui nefesh. Divrei Rabbi Yosi. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yosi.
Inui nefesh of who?
Inui nefesh of the wife. Okay, of the chenveni, she's not going to be a customer. Okay, Zok the Gemara. Nidrei inui nefesh. So what did we see from the Mishnah? That the nedarim, which is an affliction for the soul, hu de mefer, those are the nedarim that the husband could nullify. She'ein ben inui nefesh ein mefer. But if it's not an affliction of the soul for the wife, then the husband can't nullify this. Frag the Gemara. But Vatanya, we learned in the Braise, we had this already before. We learned out from a pasuk that it says all the way at the end of Parshas Nedarim, bein ish le ishtoi, bein av le bitoi, that the halach of nullifying the nedarim is between husband and wife, between father and daughter. That teaches me that the husband could nullify nedarim when it comes to any matters that are relevant between husband and wife, regarding their relations, anything between, any neder that she makes that's between them, he could nullify the neder. Now that's not necessarily something that's considered to be an affliction of the soul. So how could the Mishnah here say only something which is inui nefesh, an affliction of the soul, could the husband be mefer? Amri, so the Gemara answers, yeah, you're right. The truth is, halein v'halein mefer. There are these two categories of nedarim that a husband could be mefer. Those that are an affliction of the soul, and those that are between him and her, things that come between the husband and wife, which will be explained later in the Perek. But there's a difference between them. The power of the husband is not the same by these two categories of nedarim. Miu, however, inui nefesh, when it comes to those nedarim that the wife makes, that there are affliction of the soul, mefer la'olam. So that's a hafara. When he nullifies the neder, that nullification lasts forever. Even if he divorces her later, the nullification of the neder remains in effect. Avol, ein bem inui nefesh, but those nedarim that the husband could nullify, because it's between him and her, but there's no affliction for the soul. So Kedisat Chusei, while she's still married to him, she's under him now that she's still married to him, Havi Afara. So then that nullification is in effect. The moment he divorces her, however, so then Chayil ala Nidra, the neder takes effect again. The neder returns, it comes back. Meaning the whole kayach of the husband regarding these nedarim is to take away her control, that she's trying to put something between him and her. So as long as she's married to him, So the husband can take that away. But once they're divorced, that nullification it doesn't have any power b'chlal. So the neder comes back immediately.
You just said before that if you make something, there's no outcome.
Yeah, so this is a different, you're right, so this is a different type of afara here. This is a type of afara. The Torah only gave the power of this afara for this purpose. For this purpose, that she should not have the power to put anything between him and her, to stop any connection between him and her. But once that's not relevant anymore, the Torah l'chatchila never gave that power of afara. So immediately the neder comes back. Maybe you could almost say that really the neder, even after he was made for it, the neder be'etzem regarding these nedarim, the neder is still there. But b'poel mamish, the actual neder is not in effect because the Torah gave the power. So therefore, b'poel it's not in effect. But it's sort of be'etzem there, and the moment he divorces her, it's here again. Kana la'aba, right?
How strong the kana la'aba
right.
goes if it's made in.
Right, it's right. Is it made for all the way? Does it completely uproot it, or does it uproot it for the purpose of their marriage? And then the moment they're divorced, it's not. That's what it seems like the Gemara's answer here is right now. Okay, the Gemara will change this in a moment, as we'll see, but this is the answer of the Gemara right now. Okay, now the next line in the Gemara here is b'dvarim shebeinoy lebeino she'ein b'em inin nefesh al v'yesh b'em inin nefesh lo'chayel aleh nidra is extra. And some Ksavya, they don't have it. Others are not good as this. It seems from the Ran that is not good as this. It's not adding anything to the Gemara. So let's go to the Gemara where it says Udvarim. The Gemara asks now, beginning of the line, Udvarim. The Gemara asks now the answer that it just gave. Udvarim she'ein b'em inui nefesh. Are you telling me that those nedarim that are between him and her, and there's no affliction for the soul, ki migrash la chaylala? If he's divorcing her, so then the moment he divorces her, the neder takes effect again. How could that be? But there's a Mishnah that says not so later here in the Perek Vatnan. We learned in the Mishnah later. Rabbi Yechanan ben Nuri Yaimer. Rabbi Yechanan ben Nuri said, what is Rabbi Yechanan ben Nuri talking about? He's talking about a case where the wife made a neder that all my work, you cannot have enough for my work. My siyadel. So right, who gets the work from the wife? It's supposed to go to the husband. It's a takanas chazal that the husband gets it. So she comes and makes a neder. You can't have any benefit from my work. So what happens? The neder doesn't take effect. She doesn't have the right to take away the zechus, the privilege the husband has to get her work. So therefore so the Tanna Kama there says there's no point of even the husband being made for the neder. It doesn't take effect at all. But on that, Rabbi Yechanan ben Nuri says, Rabbi Yechanan ben Nuri yofer. No, the husband should nullify this neder because it could take effect later. Shema yegarshena. What happens if he divorces her and then v'tehei asuralai? And then the neder she made that he can't have enough from her work will take effect, and now she'll be asa to him. Right? Meaning, even though while they're married, that neder, she doesn't have the power to make such a neder, but the moment they get divorced, and now she doesn't owe him the maisi yadayim anymore, now it's her own work, now the husband will not be able to have enough from it. So therefore, nullify it today, so that your nullification should be in effect after you divorce her. So what kind of neder are we talking about? We're not talking about a neder which is an affliction for the soul. We're talking about a neder of something which is between him and her, something that she's trying to hold back from him. And what does the Rabbi Yechanan ben Nuri say? Alma, I see from here, ki migrash la, when he divorces her, meifir la, if he nullified it before when he was married to her, meikara from before, havya afara. That nullification takes effect, and it remains in effect even after he divorces her. That's what Rabbi Yechanan ben Nuri is saying. Nullify the neder, so it should remain in effect later. Huh?
After the Garsha, but
yeah, no.
Doesn't need it anymore.
And a chanami, but let's say he wants to remarry her. I think that's what it's referring to. Or b'chlal. If he doesn't, b'chlal, he doesn't want.
She has a business,
right? And he wants to be able to.
He can't buy from her.
Okay, maybe that's what it means. Okay, but I don't know if that neder meant that he can't buy from her, or meant that he doesn't get her earnings or income. Either way, the point is, if he wants the neder not to be effect later, he better be made for it now. So I see clearly that the neder that he's made for now, even though it's not inui nefesh, the hafara is in effect even after he divorces her. So the Gemara gives a similar answer, but it switches a little bit. They explain what's the difference between these two categories of nedarim. So Amri, so they said the answer is as follows: halein v'halein. These two categories we said. There's a category of inui nefesh, and then there's the nedarim which is benayu bena. These two categories have hafara. The husband can nullify both of them. But what's the difference? Ela nidre inui nefesh meifer bein la'atzmai ubein la'acherim. When he nullifies these nedarim that she has and as an affliction of the soul, so his nullification will work both la'atzmai, meaning when she's married to him, and bein la'acherim. Bein la'acherim means not only after she gets divorced from him, but even after she gets remarried to someone else, his nullification will remain in effect forever, even then as well. However, if these are nedarim that there's no affliction for the soul, but it's just a nedarim between him and her, so la'atzmai mefer. For himself, he could be made for the neder. And this lashon of la'atzmai includes not only while he's married to her, but even after he divorced her. Because even after he divorced her, as long as she doesn't get remarried to someone else, he could still remarry her. So that's still considered to be la'atzmai. So therefore, the hafara of the neder will still remain in effect. But for someone else, then the neder cannot be, the hafara will not remain in effect. Meaning, once she already got remarried to someone else, now his hafara will not be in effect. She doesn't have the ability to remarry him anymore. Once you divorce a wife and she remarried someone else, so now can't remarry the original husband. Okay, now the Gemara explains. V'hachi katani. So now the pshat in our Mishnah. If we're saying that there's two categories of nullifying a neder, so why does our Mishnah only say the category of inui nefesh? So what is our Mishnah saying? Eilu nedarim shehu mefer. Our Mishnah is only bringing this category of that he can nullify bein la'atzmai, bein la'acheirim, that he can fully nullify. He can nullify it for himself now when she's married and even when she marries someone else. When they are nedarim shesh ben inui nefesh, those nedarim that are an affliction for the soul, whereas the nedarim which are not an affliction for the soul, but they're only things that are between him and her, once she marries someone else, the nullification is not in effect. Okay.